Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. I got 3 more questions, and let's go for it. What are the most common substances in the world? Unfortunately, that's a little bit too broad to answer, because I don't know what you mean by substances. I mean, the most common element in the world is nitrogen, and the most common in organic systems is carbon, because that's what makes it an organic system. The most common substances, since you did use the word substance, the most common naturally occurring substances would be, what's the most common? It's not chitin, that's the second most common. Chitin, by the way, let's start with that. Chitin is the second most common naturally occurring substance. It's what makes up the exoskeleton of invertebrates, arthropods included, like crabs, lobsters, spiders, etc. Yeah, all insects. And it also makes up the cell walls of fungi. And cellulose. Cellulose is the most common organic compound because it comprises the cell walls of plants, and there's a massive amount of it in trees, timber. In fact, that's really, the cellulose content is basically the difference between like a support beam in a house made out of oak and the bendy, weak stem of like a daffodil or something. The amount of cellulose plays a huge role in the integrity of that structure. So I don't really know what you're asking for, so I'm just doing the best I got with what you gave me. Next question. Are protons, neutrons, and electrons the smallest things? Not exactly. There are smaller things. It gets really complicated. Let's start with the fact that an electron is technically considered a subatomic particle called a lepton, and there's actually 6 kinds. There's the regular electron, then there's the electron neutrino, muon, muon neutrino, and tau neutrino, and then you got 6 types of quarks: up, down, bottom, top, strange, and charm. And by the way, I don't understand the etymology behind any of this, just so you guys know. I played Schrodinger's cat and the Quark of Doom, or whatever it was called. What was that called? Schrodinger's cat? I'm going to look that up. And Raiders of the Lost Quark. I got the wrong Indiana Jones movie. It was really fun, and it was a great intro, actually, for me at least, to subatomic particles. And then you've got boson particles, photons, gluons. Can't remember the rest, but there's 12 of them. And then there's the Higgs boson, as you know, that made huge news. So yeah, it's not all limited to just the 3 ones that we tend to pick up on in middle and high school, and sometimes elementary school. Actually, I can't remember exactly the progression of physics in school, but I do remember protons, neutrons, and electrons, and then sometimes they would mention quarks, but other than that, there wasn't a lot brought up. Let's see. Third question, last question. I want to get into growing things, but I don't have a garden. What are some good houseplants for a beginner? I wasn't laughing at you. It's just, there are 2 very different things, in my opinion, gardening and houseplants. That being said, yeah, there's a few great beginner ones. I'd recommend, if you're worried about, everybody recommends succulents for people, but it's actually kind of easy to kill a succulent. If you take too good a care of it, they thrive on neglect. So I actually don't recommend aloe or anything like that for somebody who wants to learn how to care for a plant, because they're better off if you ignore them. Pothos, also called devil's ivy, that's a really good one. I actually have one, in fact, not because I don't know how to take care of a houseplant, but because they're just pretty and they grow well, and they are definitely a good plant if you want to go on vacation and forget about them for a little while. They just really need water once in a while and minimal sunlight, and they're good to go. There's also sword brake fern, which I don't know why it's called that. I think that's the dumbest name, but that's a good fern, good primitive plant for a beginner. Snake plants, you'll see those in like every office building ever. Cast iron plant, that's a good one. They 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 actually grew in like Victorian homes when people would just burn coal and the dust would fill the home, and it was awful. It was like literally why people went on little nature outings for their health. They thought like curative waters at some of these retreats was what was curing. No, it's because they got out of the coal burning house once in a while. Well, cast iron plants actually survived those conditions better than the people did, so they're tough to kill. And then there's what's it called? I know it starts with a Z. I think it's just called ZZ plant. Actually, let me look up the name of it, like the formal name, because I'm sure the genus and species name both start with a yeah. Zamiococcus zamifolia. Yeah, really, that's another one you'll see like in every flipping office ever. And lastly, let me look the proper name up for the money plant, because you see those everywhere too. They're really easy to take care of. Guiana chestnut, aka Pachira aquatica. Yeah, I actually remember the Latin name for that one, because I remember like whenever I read about that a long time ago, I was like surprised, because like, why is it called aquatica? Like really, I still don't know. But those are 6 or maybe 7. I mentioned a lot, so yeah. Look into any of those plants. Really hard to kill. Really great beginner plants. They do well in just about any indoor setting. Thanks you guys for the questions. Like, share, subscribe, follow me on Gab and Minds, and keep asking questions. Bye.